what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Cowboys Beat podcast for July 31st, 2024. And on today's episode, we're going to be going over day 5 of Cowboys training camp. Before we get into the video, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And let's get into the episode. So we're going to start this out like we always do with our training camp videos. We're going to go over a tweet from Kyle Yeomans going over some of his notes from the practice. So he starts off by saying, Guyton, Hoffman impress on day 1 of pads, overshown explosive at linebacker, passing game struggled as a whole, Turpin getting involved on offense, liked Mozzie and Golston's effort, communication was good at the second level, lots of defensive combos. So we have to start out with the rookie offensive tackle, Tyler Guyton. Again, he's going to be a topic that we talk about, because this guy had a very impressive first day in pads, getting reps against Micah Parsons and holding his own and then some, winning a lot of these reps. Here's the thing. Tyler Guyton impressed against one of the best pass rushers in football. Okay? I am impressed with the way he handled himself on his first day in pads going up against one of the best pass rushers in football. That is no small feat. That is nothing to look past. Now, I know there's going to be people in the comments saying, oh, you probably think he's going to be an all-pro his rookie season and whatever you guys want to say. No, I am optimistic about the trajectory of this player from what I saw at Oklahoma and the progress that he's already made from his time at Oklahoma to where he is right now. I am optimistic about this guy being a capable starting left tackle his rookie season. Anything else when it comes to him being a Pro Bowler or him being an all-pro player, maybe that's things that we can have a discussion about in his second, third, fourth season. But right now, all I need him to be is a starting left tackle in the NFL. I don't need him to be an all-pro. I would prefer if he was an all-pro. Don't get it twisted. That would be a great outcome here. I just need him to be a starting caliber left tackle. That's all I need from him at the current moment. And do I believe he can be that? Absolutely. I believe day 1 he can come in and be a starting left tackle, a guy who deserves to be a starting left tackle in this league. And everything else will fall into place, whether it be future All-Pros, whether it be future Pro Bowls. I'm not writing this guy in as a Hall of Famer after this practice, by the way. Okay? I want to see how he handles this early success, right? I want to see how he handles this. Is he going to stay in the lab, realize, hey, I did good, but there's still more work to go? Because let's be real here. When you look at some of those reps, it's not perfect technique from Tyler Guyton. The technique isn't great, but because he's such a purely talented offensive tackle, he's able to make up for deficiencies in his technique. And that's what you saw in some of those clips against Micah Parsons. That is very telling. Look, my thing with Tyler Guyton is I want to see how he deals with speed to power, because I knew he would be very good against speed rushers, because Tyler Guyton's superpower as an offensive lineman are his feet, right? So I had no worries about him going up against quicker, smaller, faster rushers. I want to see how he works against guys that are more speed to power or powerful rushers. How is that anchor going to work against guys like that? And we'll get that. We'll get those answers early here, right? Now, I'm not one of these people that say, hey, let's see how you do against Myles Garrett. Okay, he's going to go up against Myles Garrett week 1, and he probably won't see Myles Garrett again for another 4 years. Okay, this is a guy who plays in a completely different conference. You're not seeing him twice a year. And when you look around the NFC East, Brian Burns is a guy that he has to deal with, but I'm confident that he's going to have success against a pass rusher like that. I don't worry about Brian Burns' power overwhelming Tyler Guyton. When you look around the division, defensive end is not really something that you look at and say, wow, this is a division that's just flat out loaded with these guys. That's not the case. So, those are the guys you're going to be playing against 6 times this upcoming season when it comes to your division opponents. So I like the matchups that he's going to have when it comes to the NFC side of things, right? Now, when it comes to Tyler Guyton, there was a report earlier before training camp that said Chuma Edoga was potentially a guy who could start over Tyler Guyton, that he was a guy that could play the entire season, and Tyler Guyton might not even play the entire season. That's put to bed right now. There's no way you can tell me that Chuma Edoga deserves to be the starting left tackle over Tyler Guyton. Okay? My thing with the Chuma Edoga and Tyler Guyton storyline that was going on was, who is the better player right now? And if it's Chuma Edoga, how much better is Chuma Edoga than Tyler Guyton? And from what we've seen so far in training camp, and it's still very early, we still have to wait to see how this plays out. Tyler Guyton is the better player. Tyler Guyton needs to be the starting left tackle for this football team this upcoming season. And whatever flaws or deficiencies he might have in his game right now, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to work on those deficiencies, work on those flaws, and continue to get better. This is a guy I am completely bought in on. This is a guy that when he got drafted, he rented out an Airbnb to go work with Duke Manyweather. He said he's been working with him every single day. He didn't take a trip. He didn't take a vacation. These are things that he said. I'm bought in on this talent. I'm bought in on this individual, because you have to believe in the individual, in the person, before you believe in the player and his talent. And I believe in this gentleman, this young man, as a person. And I think that's going to translate into him being a great football player for this team for years to come. This looks like a guy who could potentially be another home run first round pick at offensive tackle for the Cowboys. It's still early. We have to wait and see how this thing plays out. We have to see how he handles this early success that he's found in training camp here. But these answers will be answered sooner rather than later. But so far, so good for Tyler Guyton. So in some really good news for the Cowboys, Trayvon Diggs is off the PUP list. That is the physically unable to perform list. Now, he wasn't in full practice today. He's still in that ramp-up period. I don't expect that you're going to see him really as a full go in practice, probably for another week or two, if that, to be honest with you. But I think, there's going to be a ramp-up period here over the next week or two. It's not going to look pretty for Trayvon Diggs right off the bat. And that's fine. It's okay. That's expected. Now, I do believe ultimately he will recover from this injury, and maybe come mid-season to later in the season, you'll start to see that Trayvon Diggs that we saw before his injury. Now, here's the thing with Trayvon Diggs. He was a top 10 corner in football before that injury. Some could even say a top 5 cornerback in football, even though his ball production wasn't as good in 2022 as it was in 2021. I think that you can make a legitimate case that Trayvon Diggs was better in 2022 than he was in 2021. He was much better in coverage. I think in that 2021 season, I do think his ability to actually play coverage was a bit underrated because of his ball production. But I think that he even upped his play as just a pure cover corner in that 2022 season. You saw teams not want to throw the ball towards him because they were so scared of his ball skills, on top of the fact that guys just weren't really getting open on him. Trayvon Diggs progressed in that aspect. So we'll see what he is when he gets off injury. One thing I like about Trayvon Diggs is very good athlete, fast, long. And because of that, if you're a corner that's fast and long, that kind of makes up for some deficiencies in your technique. Not saying that, Trayvon Diggs' technique is poor. It's not. It's absolutely not. He has very solid technique. But his arm length and his athleticism and his speed really make up for him maybe not having elite technique, just being really good. And I expect that some of those athletic tangibles that Trayvon Diggs has, you'll see that on full display when he comes back in the fold of things. Now, Trayvon Diggs is in a good spot coming off this injury because of the fact that he doesn't have to get back on the field and him be the bona fide number one cornerback. Now, I believe when both Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland are healthy, Trayvon Diggs is a better corner than DaRon Bland. But it's going to take some time for him to get acclimated after this injury. And I think having a guy like DaRon Bland there, who is definitely capable of being a number one cornerback. Sure, there's some type of receivers that do give him some problems, but I think having that pressure off him to immediately come back and be the main guy and have that defense rely upon you in the secondary, I think that that's actually good for him, that pressure isn't all on him coming off that ACL, and that he can return to a defense that has a guy who was an all-pro last year. Now, again, Trayvon Diggs is the best corner on this football team, but there is going to be a ramp-up period, and there's going to be an adjustment period, and there's going to have to be a period where Trayvon Diggs is getting used to being back on the field, playing at a high level again, before you really start to see the Trayvon Diggs that we saw before this ACL injury. But am I confident that he can get to that level? Absolutely. I believe in Trayvon Diggs as a person, and that is the most important thing about the game of football. You have to believe in these players as a person before you can believe in their talent. And I believe in Trayvon Diggs as a person, and I believe in his talent. So that is a great combination that he has working for him. And I think that Trayvon Diggs will be back probably mid-season to later in the season, playing at the level that we all know Trayvon Diggs can play at. So it's good news that he is off the PUP list. It almost seems like pretty much every news that the Cowboys have gotten this offseason has been bad news. So it is a bit refreshing to see that there's some actual news that you could say, you want to know what? I feel really good about that. I do. Because remaining optimistic coming off that Green Bay game and coming off the offseason where, they didn't really make a lot of moves, and with the Sam Williams injury from the other day, it's been a plethora of bad news for this team. So having some good news, it is quite refreshing. And hopefully Trayvon Diggs can, put on the pads and start getting in the swing of things when it comes to practicing with his teammates, because, he's definitely going to be important for this team this upcoming season. There's no doubt about it. So I want to finish this episode by talking about the linebackers. So I was listening to the play-by-play that they had on 105.3 The Fan with Brian Broaddus and Zach Wolchuk. And Brian Broaddus said that these linebackers were having a, quote, super day, and that all these linebackers would grade very well. Now, the linebackers that he was talking about were Eric Kendricks, Damone Clark, DeMarvion Overshown, Maris Leofau, and there were even some good things said about Buddy Johnson. He wears number 57. So I'm optimistic about this linebacker room. I think that they have depth at both spots that you really play in the modern NFL now. You have two guys that can play Mike, and you have two guys that can play weak side linebacker. And I feel like Damone Clark will be a lot better this year because he's going to be asked to play weak side linebacker compared to Mike linebacker, which he's not a Mike linebacker. So the fact that he was asked to do that last year, I understand why he was asked to do that, because the circumstances said, hey, we need you to play Mike linebacker. But now that you're putting him in his natural position as a linebacker, I feel like you're going to get better play from Damone Clark. And especially when you pair him with a guy like Eric Kendricks, I think that's going to be all the more better for Damone Clark, on top of DeMarvion Overshown, who a lot of people have sung his praises throughout this training camp, and we all saw what he did last training camp and in last preseason. So this linebacker room, I'm feeling very good about this unit as a whole. I don't think a lot of the casual fans or people that don't really pay attention to this team would be on board with me saying that I feel very good about this linebacker room, but that's fine. They're not paying attention to what's going on in these OTAs, in these training camps, in these mini camps, just the things that you hear from the coaching staff when they're talking to certain people in the media about some of these linebackers. This is going to be a very good unit that I think a lot of Cowboys fans need to pay attention to, because the Cowboys are going to be able to defend the run better than what they did last year. And a big reason as to why I believe that is because of how much better they are at linebacker than they were last year. Remember, they struggled at linebacker last year. They had Leighton Vander Esch, who played Mike linebacker for them alongside Damone Clark, who was playing on the weak side. And then Leighton Vander Esch went out. They end up playing Damone Clark at Mike. You play Marquise Bell, who's not a linebacker, by the way. Marquise Bell is not a linebacker. And he was playing linebacker for the Cowboys last year. They were asked to do things that you don't really get asked to do in certain situations where teams actually take pride in defending the run. And yes, I'm saying that Dan Quinn did not take pride in defending the run because this was a problem that the Cowboys had in all of 3 of Dan Quinn's seasons here. They did not defend the run well at all in his years as the defensive coordinator. Now, people could say it's a lack of linebackers, but at the same time, if you're the defensive coordinator who, from reports, was getting paid very handsomely, almost head coach money, if you go to the front office and the personnel department and say, I need linebackers, we need to address this position. This was something that they did not have following week 5 when Leighton Vander Esch went out. Are you trying to tell me that he doesn't have enough pull in that front office, who's paying him handsomely, might I add, for the second time, almost head coach level salary, that you can't bargain to go get another linebacker? I have a hard time believing that. I think that's the style that Dan Quinn wanted to play. That's not the style that Mike Zimmer wants to play. And another thing that I like about these linebackers, I might have said this in a previous video, I might not have, but Maris Leofau and DeMarvion Overshown both have experience playing safety, and that's going to bode well for them when they're playing coverage as a linebacker, because these are both guys that come from a position where coverage is more of an emphasis. But these guys have grown into linebacker bodies, especially Maris Leofau. You see this guy, I'm not saying he's Fred Warner. I'm not saying that. But when you look at his body and compare that to Fred Warner's, they have the same body type. I'm not saying that he's going to be Fred Warner. Please do not think that I'm telling you he's going to be Fred Warner. I'm just saying when you look at their body types, you stand those guys next to each other, very similar body types. And I think that Fred Warner has one of the more impressive physiques as a linebacker in the NFL. And I think Maris Leofau has a physique that's similar to that. So, these guys look like linebackers. They play like linebackers, and they have experience playing other positions to where I kind of just say like, hey, coverage is not going to be an issue for these linebackers. When it comes to Eric Kendricks, when it comes to Leofau, when it comes to Clark and Overshown, I'm optimistic about this room. I'm very high on this room. And I'm just really feeling good about this defense as a whole. And even as the run defense, I understand the one technique spot that a lot of people are hesitant to say that we're going to defend the run better. But here's the thing. A lot of it has to do with scheme, right? Discipline. Hey, Micah, you can't jump a gap here and break containment, because then runs are going to bounce to the outside, and that's a big gain. I think there was a little bit of that people didn't really take into consideration. Like, hey, we shouldn't be playing dime here. We're playing way too much dime. They're running the ball right down our throat. And the reason why they're doing that is because we're playing so much dime. We should probably switch our personnel and match personnel. But Dan Quinn didn't want to do that. So, yeah, overall, I'm very optimistic about these linebackers. And it's good to hear that these guys are coming out and having a very good camp, because this is a position that I'm going to keep my eye on, and a position that I think will be drastically improved from last season. But that's going to be it for the episode, though, guys. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And until next time, I will see you guys later.